Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are, and welcome to NerdTube. And we're going to be talking about the Dead Boy Detective Season 1, full of spoilers review. Not only have I seen it, but Christine, my lovely co-host, has seen it as well. How you doing, Chris?
Good, thank you.
Wonderful. Now, when I decide to work out, Chris, I'm always looking for something on YouTube, or not YouTube, but like Twitch, or not Twitch, like Netflix, Disney, all of these platforms, just to watch while I'm on my treadmill. And I thought to myself, let's watch this. This has come out this year. It's relatively new. Let's talk about it. And personally, I was surprisingly engrossed with it. Like, it was a lot better than I expected it to be. The first 5 minutes, I thought, oh my god, this is going to be really shit. I really thought that. I thought the acting was a bit hammy and all of that when they're being chased by this World War I ghost. I did pick it up straight away that there were a couple of dead guys. It made sense. All of that sort of stuff. But it turned out to be a lot better than I thought it would be, and I did thoroughly enjoy this particular series. How did you find it overall?
I loved it. I want a second series.
Yeah, uh, good characters. I'll just bring up the list of our main characters. We have um, Edwin Payne, who is a guy from the early 1900s, who was accidentally killed by his classmates.
Oh, he was sacrificed to the
Yeah,
devil.
sacrifice to go to hell, and all of that. Just so people know, just so they're wondering, so they're not too confused. Like I said, this is a spoiler review. The main characters in this show, the two of the three main characters in the show, are actually dead. They're ghosts, and they basically do detective work for other ghosts who have issues in this world of limbo that they're kind of, I don't want to say living in, because they're not living, but you know what I mean. And
Existing.
existing in, yeah. And they basically do these cases for them. At the same time, they're also running away from the Grim Reaper, Death himself or herself, who's trying to take ghosts who are in this limbo existence to the other plane, whether that be heaven or hell.
Yeah.
So whilst they're avoiding, being taken to the afterlife, so to speak, they're doing all these jobs. They're also living existing in the real world, but nobody can see them except for people with psychic abilities, or people who have suffered trauma, and like maybe like come out of a coma or whatever, had near death experiences. They can see these ghosts as well. So Edwin Payne plays one of the main characters. He's one of the ghosts. He's from the 1900s, and his partner in crime is played by Jaden Reevy, who plays Charles Rowland, somebody who died in the 90s. So he's a bit more modern, so to speak. You can tell by his look and stuff. And I think they're both supposed to play like teenagers. And this is
Right.
my one gripe with this series, is that they've got like four people playing teenagers, and they're not remotely looking like teenagers. They look like they're in their 20s,
Yeah, I
all of
was gonna say
them.
that the
Yeah,
the two female leads do not look like teens at all, and it's brought up multiple times by the
yeah,
butcher who rents rooms to the two living people, the two female leads, and she's like, "Shouldn't you teens be in class and stuff like that?" And it's like, God, they do not look like teens at all.
yep, exactly. And same with the boys as well, because it was revealed at one point, Charles, the one from the 90s, who died in the 90s, he died when he was 16. So that's what
Yeah,
a 16-year-old supposed to look like. Some
he
guy like
looks.
24 years old,
Oh,
like
at the best, he looks 20. If I
yeah,
were, suspend disbelief for a second, he looks 19. I'll give him
yeah.
that.
They look like they've like, when it comes to their physical development, they look like they're fully grown in the physicality wise. Not
Yeah,
obviously their features will mature over time, but they don't look like they're going to physically grow anymore.
right.
They so yeah, so that's the only my only gripe with this particular show regarding the casting. I mean, they could have taken a chance, but with casting younger people, but at the same time, there's a lot of this. Even though this sometimes comes across like a kid family show, with some of the nuances in this series, it actually isn't.
Yeah,
There's sex, there's drugs, there's death, there's blood, there's gore, there's swearing. The f bombing at times. I think they might have said the c word a couple of times.
yeah.
So It
If
isn't like that at all.
if they had avoided the they're supposed to be teenagers part, it would have been
Yeah,
fine with me. The only one that sort of gets away with it is the guy from the 1900s, because I think teenagers were meant to look and acted a lot more mature back then,
yeah,
more stiff.
yeah, exactly. Which is what he kind of portrayed. But in this series, they our Dead Boy detectives, um they come across a girl called Crystal Palace, who is a living person, and she can see them because she has psychic powers, and she needs their help to get her memories back, and also that she's possessed by a demon. They do get the demon out of her very early on in the series, and then after that, she feels like she's needs to find out who she is, and she's an American person in London, so they feel they have to go back to America to put the pieces together, and then they end up in America, but they kind of through some actions meeting somebody called the Cat King, kind of get stuck in America, but they do
Yeah.
a lot of cases whilst they're in America, because once word spreads around amongst other ghosts that they're in America, all these American ghosts start coming to them, asking them to solve their cases. They also stay at this lady's house called Jenny the Butcher, who's probably the hottest butcher I've ever seen in my entire life. Yeah, she was awesome. I need to go to her butcher shop. And
I think part of this might have been filmed in Canada, because I'm pretty sure she's a Canadian actress, and I think a lot of the scenes were filmed on the West Coast. So
she's her name is Brianna Justine Kuko, and she's an American actress, a singer
good.
and choreographer. Um, yeah, we're looking. One of the things I've noticed that sometimes with certain shows, they like to pretend they're in locations that they're not, and at times I wasn't 100% sure that they were even in America. You know, because there's a lot of indoor shots, and some of the street shots were a bit out of focus in the background and stuff. So who knows? There could have been a green screen. Even at one point when they were on the rooftop, and I thought to myself, that's definitely green screen.
Yeah.
So, and there's also somebody else. So they stay at this butcher's. Oops. Oh, sorry.
So
So they
good.
stay at the butcher. Jenny. She has a room to rent, and they stay at at her place. And one of the people who are also accommodating one of the rooms in this place is a young teenage girl called Yu, and they kind of and she has some supernatural problems of her own, and they deal with her. She has these sort of like
Right.
evil sprites who are trying to do bad within her, but they manage to deal with her, and because of her traumatic supernatural experiences, she can also see the ghosts. Now, one of the issues I do have with the ghosts themselves is the fact that they can interact with the real world. So there's times when they've given them a book, like a human person's given the ghost a book, and so that means if I was walking past all of this, I'll be seeing a floating book. You know what I mean? Or something like that. But
Well,
that's not
there's this
necessarily.
inconsistency, because
Yeah.
sometimes they would have a book from their shop back in London because they could travel through mirrors, until, of course, the Cat King stopped one of them from doing that because he had a magic bracelet that kept him in the town. And they would get books from there, and no one living could see them. But then when they had the jar where they captured the sprites in, the girl who had been possessed by them could see the floating jar. I mean, it was very inconsistent.
Yeah, there were. Yeah, I mean, the series in a way it was lucky that it was fun to watch because there were some inconsistencies, things that I had questions with, like if if there is an afterlife and there are people or like sort of like a supernatural entity trying to get these ghosts to be part of that afterlife and not be in limbo, then why do they have a postal service? How does that work? You know, and also the fact that they're living or they're working in this office in somewhere in London, like that. I don't care. Like that office would not be left unattended.
Yeah.
You know, somebody would be working there. You know, it's in central London. They would never leave it like that. They make and like the way it was kept as well with all the books and all of that. I just felt, yeah, it just felt a bit
Maybe
uh,
if they existed within an office where other people that didn't see them were also working, that could have worked. Uh,
something like that. Yeah, but
but
having stuff that,
the
yeah,
mailman, I gave the mailman a pass thinking he might have been in limbo as well, and not giving up his roots. He had to continue because mail never stops, right? It's
I
your
guess.
inbox is always full. So maybe he felt like he had to keep going. Like I gave a lot of suspension of disbelief to this, and that was worth it in the end because I thought it was a great series.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There are times when there are series out there that tend to have all these question marks to them, but you don't care because you're enjoying the ride.
Hmm.
And to a degree, that was the case. But thinking about it, it does bug me a little bit. But there are times when, if you're not enjoying the ride and all these questions start popping up, you do question it even further.
Yeah.
Luckily, that wasn't necessarily the case. Now, there were 8 episodes in this show. Any episode in particular that stood out for you, Chris?
I think when one of our detectives goes back to hell, and I'm really glad that he wasn't a character that deserved to be in hell, that he ended up there by accident. For those of you who haven't watched it yet, he gets sacrificed for being gay back in the 1916 by classmates, one of which is also gay and is so frustrated by it, gets his buddies to, play at sacrifice, but it ends up being real. So he ends up in hell, but he escapes, but he gets sent back. And I thought the depiction of hell was really neat. So I like that episode a lot.
Did it not remind you of Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey?
I haven't seen that, so no.
Okay, because in that film they go to hell. They're playing the Grim Reaper at games like Battleship and stuff like that. But regardless, they go to hell, and I had if you watch that movie, you could see the similarities of what hell is there and here and all of that. But I thought it was cool that the spider made of doll heads and stuff like that was
Oh,
pretty freaky.
and I like the fact that the guy who sacrificed him was in hell, and all he had his punishment was paperclip or paper cuts.
Yeah.
It was like in a classroom, and he'd been ordered by a fictitious teacher that wasn't there that he had to rip all these pages out of these books, and he was doing it for so many years. You know, 80 years, and he's ripping these pages, and he had paper clips. And when the guy goes back to hell, he's like, all you get is paper clips or paper cuts. He was pissed off at first, and then he sees
How bad it is.
yeah, and then he sees, I think it's one of the deadly sins
He saw
later.
despair.
Yeah, despair, not a deadly sin, but he sees despair feeding off this, and he's like,
Yeah.
okay, you're right, I'm gonna go and forgive this guy, and he gets to go to heaven. And I thought it was pretty cool because I think he realizes that he himself is going through a crisis of sexuality himself, and he realizes that's all that happened to this guy back in 1916 too, was that he had to hide it, and it was hard for him, and he fucked up as a result.
People who know us, we're quite liberal, and we have no issues with people's orientations and sexualities and stuff like that. But how did you personally feel about his desire for his best friend?
I thought it was good because he didn't go down that route of, okay, it's just he loved you all the time too. It was, yeah, sure, you loved him, but he was, no, I'm your friend. And they didn't take the cheap, easy way. It was unrequited. I can't say the word.
Okay, but it wasn't reciprocated, but by his
Yeah.
colleague. Yeah, I know what you mean. By his friend, who are our two main characters. But yeah, he did love him from the moment they met him. We never really got to see how them two met to a degree.
Well,
We kind of, yeah.
hopefully we'll see that in series 2, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, but and this is the funny thing because when you're playing kind of immortal characters, you do naturally age regardless if you're an actor and you're not immortal yourself. So hopefully they get the series too, but they are playing teenagers at the end of the day, and we don't want them looking like they're in their 30s still playing 16-year-olds, if you know what I
Right.
mean. So
Unless they can really come up with a brilliant way, and it would have to be a brilliant way to explain their aging.
yeah, or they might with the aging technology also becoming more prominent, they could cheapen it that way in little facelift here and stuff like that, with the de-aging tech. My favorite episode was episode 3, the one with the loop, with the family being in the loop, being slaughtered by their dad.
Yeah.
The whole time. That I thought that was a brilliant episode. Have you ever seen the film High Spirits?
No.
It was basically a ghost story where they come across some ghosts and they're going through this loop, and they accidentally break the loop, and so the ghosts now are no longer doing this loop. And it kind of reminded me of that. Obviously, how they portrayed it in this was a bit different, but I did like the fact that that for 30 years, their family have been slaughtered, every 30 seconds, so to speak, which is unimaginable. What the people must be feeling, having to relive that moment again and again and again and again. And then you could see within Charlie how pissed off he was regarding it and having to try and resolve it. And then on top of that, there is other hindrances, like there's like some sort of dementor in there which feeds off the misery of what's going on, and they have to deal with that and put the clues together to find out how to stop this all at the same time. And then you've got Crystal Palace's moments of her psychic moments happening, and that guy Dave, the demon Dave, which we haven't even brought up yet, coming after her as well. Like all of that culminating in that one episode, as well as Charlie ending up being in the loop too, because he tried to stop the loop. That was just such a brilliant episode, and they had to resolve all of that within that day or the last few hours, because the house was getting knocked down the next day. And if they didn't resolve that, then that family would be lost in some sort of death after death limbo sort of thing, where they wouldn't be passing through an afterlife because the house would be destroyed. So yeah, it was such a great episode. I really liked it. Really good stakes in that episode as well. So I enjoyed it.
A great ending too. When they break the loop, and the family gets, the daughters and the mother, the blue light comes for them.
Yeah.
And the father's upstairs, and the red light comes for him. I like that a lot too.
Yeah, but even for him, like after 30 years of seeing, even though he was a troubled person, he must have thought, damn, I can't keep killing my family for 30 years. Even he must have had a moment, but it was too late for him. He killed his family regardless, so he deserved to go to hell. So yeah.
And the fact that they kind of mislead you a bit in the beginning and make you think that he does it because he thinks his wife is cheating. But in reality, he's just a controlling asshole. And one of his daughters wants to go to school, and the school's name is like a man's name.
Yeah, Hudson University.
Yeah. So they lead you to think that the wife gets a letter from a man named Hudson, and he gets pissed off. But no, it's his daughter's leaving for the University of Hudson. So that was pretty cool.
I actually thought at the beginning of that case that they were dealing with, that we were going to find out maybe the husband was innocent, but no, they didn't go down that route at all. Like, he did kill his family, and they went there, and and the fact that they had, because it was on repeat, constantly slaughter, brilliant stuff. Now there were other characters in this, like for instance, we had this evil witch, who was this evil witch who tried to remain young by taking little girls into a house and feeding it to a snake, which will keep her. But she's immortal, but she's not able to stop herself from aging. So in order to remain young, she has to feed this snake in her basement, which is in like some sort of TARDIS type of portal. Like like the basement looks really small, but it's not even the basement. It's like in the back of a pantry wardrobe or something like that. And then it opens up into this giant,
a kitchen cupboard.
Yeah. And there's like this giant pit at the bottom, and there's a snake there lurking that eats all the bodies that she feeds it, so she remains young. And she's quite a vindictive person. She has no remorse. And at one point, she knows that she can also see the ghosts as well. And she knows one of them is a little bit repressed, so she dices up her crow and turns it into a boy, and makes
to seduce him.
Yeah, to seduce
and
him.
that actor that they chose, sorry to interrupt you, the actor they chose to play the crow as a boy or as a young man looks handsome, but like a crow handsome.
There's probably one of the few actors in there who looked like a teenager as well.
Hmm.
Let me find out who he is. I got his. Here he is. He plays Monty the Crow Boy. Monty. Oh, he's 22 years old, which is why he looked a lot more. He probably about 21 at the time when they were making this. Also an American actor and singer as well. So yeah. But he actually started to like within himself. He was starting to feel kind of torn, but he started to like Edwin, and
Hmm.
then obviously the witch picks up on that, and yeah, she turns him back into a crow again, rips him apart. That was the same episode, I believe, as the giant mushroom, which is absolutely hilarious.
Yeah,
You know?
that was kind of for me. That was the only part that was a little too childish, I guess. Maybe I'm sorry if
Yeah,
you like that. That's cool.
I thought
Like,
it was a bit. I thought it was funny, but because I've never seen anything like that before. It was just
yeah,
unusual. It was unusual, but I wasn't scared by it. Now, in a lot of types of series, there's always these bureaus. Like in Loki, you have this time bureau, and in oh god, I forget the name of that series. The Umbrella Academy, there's a bureau there, and in this, there's an afterworld bureau that looks for
lost children.
ghosts. Well, this particular department does. This woman
Yeah,
called the night nurse, and they're looking for these two teenagers who are considered lost children. These two men who look like teenagers as lost children, and they're trying to bring them back, but they know what they're doing. I think with at one point Charles, he possesses the witch, doesn't he? And if you possess the witch,
yeah.
um, it's
Yeah, Charles. Yeah.
yeah, it sends alarm signals to that bureau, and they're able then to track you down. So that's what kind of happens, and then they get involved. The night nurse herself ends up in the belly of a giant sea monster, and even that was so funny because when you're inside
Yeah.
that belly of that sea monster, it looks like a set. It looks like, and I like the charming ofness of it. They're
Yeah.
not trying to like over elaborate with special effects and stuff like that. You could be in the theater watching that
Yeah.
particular scene the way it looked. And there's this Indian guy in there as well, and he's very mysterious, but he seems
Yeah.
to be very friendly at the same time and try to help her. And he seems to be quite content living in the belly of this beast.
I liked
Uh,
him a lot. He was one of my favorite characters because he was just like, I've been on a lot of adventures. This is just another one of them. And he's
yeah,
like, here, do you want an oyster? Sit down, relax.
yeah, and he eventually she because the night nurse is, I don't know if she's a living or dead person, but because she can interact with the living as we saw as she did with those little girls and stuff like that.
She's
But
a,
so
a multi-dimensional person of some sort. Not
well,
person.
I want to get back to the night nurse because at the same time the boys, they can interact with the living by pretending to be other people. They can disguise themselves as other people, and they can interact with the living, which in a way means that wouldn't you want to just to do that and still pretend that you're living, and all of that. I don't know, but I don't want to get into that's another thing which was like made me think to myself, what the hell's going on,
Hmm.
but they got the best of both worlds then to a degree. But and I did like the way in episode one that you thought those two clowns were them when it really was the two people on the train when it came to the disguise and
Yeah.
catching Crystal Palace. But going back to Night Nurse, I like the fact that she was given that ring, and they were just, and the Indian guy said to her, "Why don't we just talk to the fish and see if they'll let you loose?" And they do. I mean, it's weird. That fish is a bit weird, but it's happy to eat people, but it's also happy to let them free. But fair enough, that's what happens. And she ends up going on the hunt again. We also got the walrus who owns the magic shop,
Yeah.
which was an interesting character as well. We found out a little about him, and he has all these little trinkets and stuff like that. He has a part to play as well, and at some point he gives Yuri, the girl who was possessed by the sprites, gives her a lucky charm, which will come into play probably next season, which is why she's not dead. So because she sacrifices herself to save Crystal Palace when they confront the
The
witch
witch.
at the end of the series. We've got both the Ghost Boys hostage, and she's actually extracting the juice out of one of them to give her more power. All of that. Yeah, just an absolute crazy series with so much happening. It was fantastic. Lots of so many elements. It
And
was memorable.
about the charm, I love the fact that he just gave her the charm because he was about running his business and he wanted to be paid for what he did. And he, even when the evil witch wanted stuff from him, he ended up, giving it, well, selling it to her. But because who's the character that was possessed? What's her name again?
Or the witch.
No, the
Crystal Palace.
no, the Asian girl.
Yuri.
Yuri.
You. So, no,
You,
no,
you.
no, 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 no. That's the actress's name. Her name is. So her character's name is Nico.
Yeah, Nico. No one would listen to the walrus. He wanted to tell a story, but she finally is like, "Okay, tell me." And
Yeah.
she was kind, and as a result of her kindness, he gave her this trinket that he would normally want money for. And it saves her life in the end.
I did like how some of the flashbacks were told in these animated formats as well, which was a nice way of doing things.
Mm-hmm.
So it was different when it came to the exposition. It was done in that way. I mean, people complain about exposition, but I understand that you have to somehow shoehorn it in some capacity, or we have no idea what the hell we're watching and what's going on, because it's a very complicated plot at times. And when you're dealing with a series with an overarching plot as well as dealing with the individual cases, these things need to happen at some particular point. By the end of the show, our boys they have to meet their fate, so to speak, because they can't keep running away from the night nurse who's finally cornered them back to their office in London.
Right, because she's very sorry. Just enter really quickly for people who are watching. She's obsessed with making her quota, and her thing is her section of the afterworld life is to make sure all child ghosts are collected and then split off into where they're supposed to go. And she doesn't want to have any missing children. She doesn't really care about the kids. She cares about her quota. And her big thing was these guys have been escaping her grasp for so many years, right?
Exactly, and she's fed up. She's like the Smoky, and they're like the bandits. And she's had enough of being, looking like a fool and all of that. So she finally catches up with them. She's brought her boss as well, who was the love interest in Karate Kid 2, and she's very impressed with the Dead Boy detectives. The bosses saying that you're pretty much doing our job for us. You're bringing people. You're assessing these cases, and you're helping people. Cross. Cross into the afterlife.
Yeah.
And because of that, they're allowed to keep their job. Because she saw all the cases they closed. And was very impressed by that, and I thought that was a nice touch. And so they're able to continue doing what they're doing. So, yeah, that's going to be meaning a season 2, hopefully. Overall,
yeah,
a good series. Yeah,
I sort of saw that coming, and I was fine with seeing it coming because I wanted it to happen. I was like, I thought the night nurse would figure it out, but obviously it was her boss in the end. That they were actually collecting wayward souls, and that was her business to begin with, right? Whether she had great reasons to do it or not, that's what she was doing. That's what she was employed for. So why not use them as an asset? That the clear asset that they were, because they closed cases, they helped spirits move on.
Exactly. They were doing the right thing. They were doing a good deed, and they wanted to come across as good guys. I think that was kind of fundamental. And at the same time, Edwin was also doing this as well, so he wouldn't go back to hell. He's like trying to a bit what's it called, Constantine, like, have we seen Constantine? A bit like that, trying to do good deeds so he doesn't go to hell and all of that sort of stuff. But he
was trying to balance
the
sheets with, even though we know he didn't have to, it was a technicality, but hell was so scary and he couldn't go back. And I didn't want him to go back. I was glad he had a little trip there because it made it interesting. But he was such a great hero that you're like rooting for him.
Actually, there's one thing. Actually, there was one part of the story that I felt was unnecessary and led to nowhere, and that was with Jenny and her love interest, the butcher Jenny, because she had this love interest who was the librarian, yeah, and the librarian ended up being cuckoo, and she ends up in self defense, not killing the librarian. The librarian killed herself by accident by slipping and landing her head in that spike. And you would have really thought that regardless of Jenny defending herself, there was no witnesses, nobody could prove stuff. If anything, it looked like Jenny killed her, you know.
Yeah.
But police come along, you know, all right, dead body gone, whatever, move on. Honestly, that was really poor, you know.
Yeah.
All of that, there was no point in that, you know, at all. Like it started for no reason, led to nothing. Maybe next season there might be something from this or whatever, but it felt so irrelevant, you know.
I thought it went off in a direction, like you said, like the police come, it's good. I thought, okay, they're gonna have to hide the body because this doesn't look like a clear case of, accidental death or
Yeah.
self-defense, and she's gonna get in trouble for it, the butcher. But no, the police come, they wrap it up. And I thought, okay, they're gonna have to hide her body, and then she'll be haunted by this evil ghost that's stalking her, even in death. But they didn't even go there, which would, I think, have made a better story.
I mean, maybe the ghost could play a part in season 2, but
she's in hell. She's on the stairs.
is she in hell? Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Of course, yeah. I remember the staircase.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But she's on the stairs, so she can maybe get out. You know,
Yeah.
So
she is close to the exit. Yeah.
Yeah, but overall, like the whole directing of it felt very pointless and
Yeah.
unnecessary, and I rather they not had that whatsoever. You know, so that's how I feel about that. So it's not perfect. You know, I did enjoy the show, and yeah, overall it was fun, and the resolution to the series was good, and all of that, and I look forward to seeing where they take things. Also, sorry, there's always things popping up in my head regarding the show, and I want to wrap things up. But Crystal Palace finding out that she's actually a bit of a bitch, you know, when she
yeah.
when she comes across her, when she gets her memories back after dealing with David the demon, who she resolves. You know, I wouldn't say very quickly. David is a constant thorn in her side, but she ends up taking care of him, and she meets her ancestors and stuff like that, and they all suppress the demon, and he's not gone because you can't kill him, but he's suppressed, and so they might have to deal with him another season or whatever. But
Yeah.
she's got power over him.
She and her ancestors bury him, I guess, in her subconscious.
Yeah, under the tree. Yeah.
They warn her and say he's not gone forever. She gets her memories back in these little, I guess, marbles, and as she swallows them, she gets more and more of her memory back, and she finds out, as a result of her powers in the past, she had no limits. She could use them to further her own self wants, and she abused it. But meeting these two detectives have kind of made her a better person, you know.
It's funny because she knows who she is, but because she's also been this other person and she lost her memories, she doesn't necessarily want to go back to who she once was. And I think that the most saddest thing about it is that she's been missing for about 3 or 4 weeks, and when she contacted her parents, they had no idea that she was missing in the first place. They were too busy doing their own thing, you know. So yeah, maybe that led to her being the person that she was because of a relationship she had with her family. It's all very interesting stuff.
I was just going to say that.
So all very interesting stuff. Even like Charlie, like, you know, he has issues with bad family members, and even though his dad was heavy handed on him, he still likes to keep an eye on his parents now and again, hoping that his dad wouldn't beat up his mom or whatever, if that's the case. But
yeah,
it's
his partner in crime has no idea that he occasionally looks in on his parents, and I wonder if that's something that they address later.
Yeah, exactly. Overall, great series. This is based on the Dead Boy Detective comic books. As you can see, we have that on our background behind this. Comic books, I had no idea it existed. It looks pretty cool. It's from the pages of the Sandman. I have no idea what that is as well. These are American comic books as well, because I can just see here $2.99. Back in the day when comics weren't that expensive. So yeah, interesting stories. I love stuff like this. This is so cool knowing that it comes from these comic books, and I'm glad that it's been brought to light. I have no idea if our characters are supposed to be English or not, as this is American comics. Who knows? But nevertheless, it's a good first achievement. I'm going to mark it out of 10 now, Chris. What are you going to give it?
I don't want to mark it too high because I don't want people to be disappointed.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
I'm going to give it an 8. I think
I was gonna go with 8.
Yeah, 8 I think is right, because I can't give it too high. As much as I enjoyed this show, there are some fundamental issues that make me think, oh, why is this like this? Why is it like that? And obviously that plot thread with Jenny and the love interest, all of those sort of things, I thought they were either pointless or stupid or poorly done. And I have questions that I feel need to be answered. Maybe they could be answered in another season, but some of them also I feel could be answered, regardless of whether it be answered next season or not. There are some things that make no sense with the interaction of the dead world with the living. Like when they were in that girl's house who killed the 2 teenage boys. She poisoned them. Like they were able to move the cupboard and get behind the cupboard and pull out a bag and open up the bag and pull out these phones and stuff like that. Like if I was a living person standing in that room right now, I'll be seeing a cupboard move on its own and a bag float open up and then 2 phones come out of it. Like, are ghosts really able to interact with the human world to that degree? It's ridiculous. So stuff like that bothers me, because if that was the case, that you'll be seeing paranormal activity all the bloody time in our real world, because ghosts can do that.
Yeah, they went on about how there was more dead people now, which makes sense. So it would be happening everywhere. You're right.
Yeah.
And that's why I didn't want to give it a 9, even though I really enjoyed it. I had to pull it down to an 8 because of things like that. Yeah.
Exactly. So it makes you question the world that we're in. A couple of unnecessary plot threads. Even the same with the Cat King never really got resolved too well, because the bracelet came off when he went to hell. The bracelet that stopped him from leaving the city that they were in, and then the Cat King ended up being in that a colleague instead of an adversary. So yeah, unusual. I did like the talking cats though; they were pretty cool.
But
so,
now
yeah,
the Cat King, there was a little brief thing about him being older than the ghosts and him having a backstory, but I don't think we're ever going to resolve that because they've gone back to England now. So that leaves you hanging, right?
Well, they could always go back to America. They got the mirrors, just easily. They could jump back in, and then you had that female Neptune character, from the water, that Avenger of women and stuff like that, who ended up killing the witch at the end, who took the body.
That was there was 2 women in Eden when the Garden of Eden started. There was Eve, and then there was Lilith, I think.
Okay.
And she was Lilith, and so she was like the, I guess, original feminist and purveyor of witchcraft, and that's how that witch got her powers. She went to Lilith and asked for eternal life, but Lilith was like, oh, I'll give you eternal life, but not eternal youth, right? So
read the small print, as the
yeah.
Walrus said.
Yeah.
And even the Walrus himself said that, like apparently like Lilith and her dad were in the boat, and the boat was going really rough, and so the father threw Lilith at the boat in hoping the gods would help him, sacrifice his daughter, so to speak. But if anything, the gods got more angry and they turned Lilith into the god of the ocean. And then she came across the walruses, and one of them was curious about human beings, and so turned him into the human who ended up being the guy who works in the shop.
Yeah.
All of those silly. All right, but okay, fair enough. It's interesting at the same time. At the same time, some of these stories are a bit bizarre. Okay, whatever. But yeah, overall, I give it an 8. I enjoyed it enough to give it a decent mark, but I would give it 9s or 10s if it wasn't for these things that make me question the world that they're in, question the show, and obviously a stupid storyline here or there, which I thought was unnecessary. And I guess you're the same.
Yeah.
8 as well, yeah?
Yeah, 8, but I recommend it for everyone.
Yeah. I highly recommend it as well. It's a really good show. When like I said, when I first started watching it, I thought to myself, this looks a bit cheesy, it looks a bit hammy. I think this might be pretty shit, but you get over that pretty quick, and the stories get pretty interesting, and you find the two main characters or the three main characters quite endearing, and then it becomes 4 main characters once is it Rokia? Bloody hell, that name escapes me. Nico, sorry, becomes part of that contingent, and as well as some of the other characters as well. They can be quite, even some of the less nicer ones, they can be kind of interesting, endearing to in their own right. And yeah, it becomes a very enjoyable show once all the pieces start to come together.
I thought the Crow was very endearing. He falls in love. He's lied to him because the witch notices that he's falling in love, but he's so conflicted, and he was very endearing. But you're right, all the characters are awesome.
Yeah, they really are,
good or bad.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that's basically it for this review of Dead Boy Detectives, currently on Netflix, season 1. Check it out. Oops.
Season 1.
Yeah, season 1, currently on Netflix. Check it out. And here on NerdTube, don't forget to like, share, subscribe to NerdTube. We are, without that, the greatest YouTube channel you never heard of. We're on Twitch, we're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, as you know, and we're on TikTok. We've got thousands of subscribers on TikTok. We're very popular on that as well. Check out our videos on there too. Take care now, and bye-bye.